You're listening to the Nourish CEO podcast, and this is my brand new series on the 4 CEO types, how to build a business that fits who you actually are. This is one of 4 episodes that deep dive into each CEO type to help you understand your wiring, leverage your strengths, avoid your blind spots, and build a business that works with your true nature instead of against it. Here's the reality of the business coaching landscape right now. Almost everything you see is built for one of 2 types of operators. One is the bold, fast-moving, decisive person who can make a call and execute without looking back. And the second is the highly relational, magnetic personality who can grow a massive audience just on the strength of who they are and convert it through sheer warmth and connection. Now, if you're one of those 2 types, a lot of the advice out there probably will work reasonably well for you. But here's what no one's talking about. Those are not the only 2 ways to lead a business. Even more than that, the current obsession with hype-first marketing, meaning build a big audience, go viral, be everywhere all at once, perform your personality at scale, dangle the carrot in front of people, and don't worry about actually delivering anything on the back end. All of that is actively working against a huge portion of experts who are genuinely excellent at what they do, but they're not wired to build a business that way, and they really don't want to. So if you're more methodical, if you lead through depth and rigor rather than speed and charisma, if you build trust slowly, but your clients stay for years because you build that trust, the mainstream advice wasn't built for you. And trying to implement it anyway is probably costing you way more than just time and energy in your business. Now, this is what this series is designed to fix. The 4 CEO types framework will map your natural leadership style, how you decide, how you build trust, how you sell, and even how you deliver your programs, and helps you build your business strategy around that. It's not as a workaround for not being the right type of CEO. It's building your business with your genuine competitive advantages at the forefront. Now, if you haven't taken the CEO type quiz yet, it's linked in the show notes, or you can go to lauraschoenfeld.com/quiz. And I recommend that you take it before you listen to these series episodes or take it after. Either works, but I want to make sure that you know exactly the type that is most aligned for you. And if you're already in the middle of the series, welcome back. Let's get into it. We're on part 3 of the 4-part series, the 4 CEO types, how to build a business that fits who you actually are. Today, we're covering the consistent CEO. And if this is your type, I need you to hear this. Your steadiness and consistency is such a big asset. But tell me if this sounds familiar. You take a slow and steady approach to growing your business. While other people are chasing trends, burning out, and reinventing themselves every 6 months, you're building something that lasts. Your clients trust you, your reputation is solid. People know exactly what they're going to get when they work with you. You're the entrepreneur who's still standing 5, 10, even 15 or more years from now because you built things the right way. But here's the question that no one's asking. Is your steadiness building towards something bigger, or is it just keeping you safe? And maybe you've noticed that other people seem to grow faster than you. They make changes, they pivot, they launch, they scale, and you're still in the same place you were a year ago. You're doing good work, but you're not necessarily moving forward. Or worse, maybe your business is now starting to shrink even though you're doing everything the same way that you've always done it. Today, we're going to talk about the difference between strategic consistency and fear-based stagnation, and how to use your natural steadiness for growth instead of just maintenance. Let's start with what makes a consistent CEO. The core wiring that you are working with is that you are relationship-focused and slow-paced. So you're thinking about, how do I connect with other people? How do I be dependable, reliable, just somebody who people can count on? And you make decisions more slowly. That doesn't mean in every single area of your life. It just means that you tend to be a deeper thinker. You tend to pump the brakes a lot with making any big decisions. And you're not somebody who just leaps and then looks later, right? Like you're somebody who really counts the cost of the decisions that you are making. Now, the way that the consistent CEOs tend to show up in business is that you show up reliably every week, week after week, year after year. So it's very rare for you to miss an action step or something that you've committed to, right? So, like if you're using social media, you post every week. Maybe it's multiple times a week. If you do a podcast, you release your podcast every week on the same week. You are somebody who, once you commit to something, you are committed. This allows you to build deep trust with your audience over time. They know what to expect. You are someone who keeps your word, you're honest, you're dependable. You are not someone who's going to say one thing and then change your mind a day later, and people really appreciate that. We all know, having been in relationships where somebody's not reliable, or they say one thing and then do another, or they say they're going to show up somewhere and then they're late or they don't show up at all. That is a huge trust erosion, even in just friendships or dating relationships. So it works the same way in your business. So anything that you can think of that would benefit a relationship in your real life, same thing shows up in business, right? So your dependability, your consistency, your integrity is something that people really value. And it makes you a much more trustworthy person to work with than somebody who's all over the place. You also create spaces where your clients feel genuinely safe. This is so valuable, especially if you work in an area where the problem that your ideal client is dealing with is sensitive. Maybe it's eating disorders, maybe it's debt, maybe it is wanting to be in a relationship and being single for a long time. Just areas where people can have a lot of shame, they can be embarrassed, they can feel like, there's judgment from other people, not from you, right? Like, it's very clear to your ideal clients that you create this safe space for them to process, for them to work through their challenges, for them to share what's going on. And you don't rush them, you don't make them wrong for feeling that way, and you really, really care about them. And so that is a genuinely safe container for people to be in, where they don't feel like they're just a number to you, or that, if they share something vulnerable, they're going to get blasted about it. And that is very valuable for people. You also think about your business in the long term. You're not just chasing quick wins. You're not just chasing vanity metrics. You're not just looking for the next trend that's coming and going. You're really thoughtful about the decisions you make for your business, and you're looking to the future. You're looking at not just what you want this week or this month to look like. You're really thinking about what you want this year or this decade to look like, which is awesome, because we all know that when it comes to building a business, it takes time, right? And so if you're just thinking about what am I doing today, what am I doing tomorrow, you're not necessarily building for the future, and you're not creating something that can last. So your approach to business really creates a lot of sustainability, a lot of dependability, a lot of longevity, which is awesome. And even if it's a slower growing experience, you're at least growing over time and you're not having this like big roller coaster experience. Clients find you loyal, dependable, trustworthy, and that actually is what drives them to stick around for a longer period of time with you. So you are somebody that can have a very long lifetime customer value, because people want to stick around. They want to keep paying you, even if they move a little slower to get the results that they want. That's okay, because they're there for the long haul. You're there for the long haul. You're not rushing them. You're not making them feel bad if they're not making progress fast enough. And so that can create this really awesome lifetime customer value where your ideal clients stay for years. And that is a huge benefit to your business. Now, the reason why this is genuinely valuable is because most business owners, especially the ones that are more of those quick decision makers, like your decisive or your relational CEO, they can struggle with consistency. I know for me personally, as a decisive CEO, I can force myself to be consistent, but I am very much the kind of person that's like hot and cold, can work my face off for a few weeks and then wants to disappear for a month. And so sticking to something consistently takes a lot of attention and effort, and just it's not in my nature. And that doesn't mean I'm untrustworthy or that I like abandon things. It's more of this, I just have to really put myself in this place where I commit to that showing up, and I'm putting it in my calendar and I'm making sure this is happening, versus for you, showing up consistently and having a routine is just natural. It's just something that's like, this is just how I live my life. This is what I do on these days of the week. And there isn't a lot of like changes or ups and downs with the way that you're approaching your business. You also have the skill set to build the type of trust that works really well for selling. So, especially in a market where, yeah, there are a lot of other entrepreneurs who are that flashy, like big promising, just very aggressive type of salespeople. And I am finding, especially in, 2025, 2026, and moving forward, people have realized that that doesn't always turn out the best when somebody's promising you the world, the sky, the moon, the stars. And so now they are slowing down. They are being more thoughtful about where they're spending their money. And someone like you who can really show them that you're not going anywhere, you're not, going to like be here today, gone tomorrow. You are saying the same things over and over. You're being very consistent. You're reliable. That's actually something that can be very attractive to buyers now, especially. So it's a huge asset for you that is naturally what you do. And like I said, your clients tend to become lifetime clients. Now, obviously, they may graduate, they may move on, but if you're the kind of person that does a service where it would make sense for somebody to be working with you for a long time, like let's say you're a personal trainer, for example, somebody will stick around for years. Like I know my personal trainer that I work with, it's been a little bit since I've been working with him, mostly because of my schedule being crazy with 2 kids, but up until last year, I was pretty much working with him consistently for, I wanna say 10 years at that point. So, because he was consistent with his availability, with what I could expect from him. He was very stable and steady, and he wasn't like, trying to like go crazy with his business. He was growing it, but he wasn't doing anything super flashy or, opening 15 different locations and then being hard to chase down. Knowing that he was there made me, I say lifetime customer. As soon as I have the availability to go back, I would totally go back. I would definitely like to, right? So if you have a business where it makes sense that somebody can work with you for a while, you have the ability to keep somebody in your world for a long time. And that can grow a ton of income in your business as time goes on, as you continue to add more and more clients. You also are at lower risk for burnout with things like social media, content creation, because you're not just online chasing trends, trying to figure out what's the next hot thing that I need to do. You really have your routine, you have your way of showing up, and maybe you're paying a little bit of attention to trends, but you're not getting so tossed back and forth by them. You might be like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe try one here and there, but you really have your bread and butter content that you know you're going to put out. And that makes it easier for you to show up, especially on a platform like social media, which can kind of feel very volatile. You don't go on social media to just try to like keep up with the Joneses. You're really there to share your opinion, your perspective, and to do it consistently. So I really respect that about the consistent CEOs. Like I said, as a decisive CEO and a fast mover, yes, there's benefits to moving fast, but sometimes the challenge for me is that I don't always slow down. I don't always contemplate decisions as slowly as maybe I could. I do tend to be like, I have the tendency to maybe get a little shiny object syndrome. I've gotten better at that from practice over the years, but that's not my natural tendency to just stick with something for a long time. I'm very much a project starter. And then I have to really, I don't want to say force myself, but it takes a lot of discipline for me to finish a project. Even as a kid growing up, I would start an art project and then not finish it. And then it just sits around, half finished art project for the rest of existence. You don't do that as the consistent CEO. You finish what you start. Maybe you don't start as many things, but you finish what you start. And that's really valuable and really admirable. So, how does the consistent CEO make money naturally? Now, I know sometimes when you're not the biggest, like personality or the flashiest entrepreneur, you can start to feel like you're at a disadvantage because other people just seem like they're making more than you, they're making bigger moves than you. But I think you actually underestimate the power that you have with the personality type that you have as a consistent CEO. We're in a low trust era. I know there's a lot of people talking about the trust recession and how people are taking longer to make purchases, they're taking longer to trust people. That's true. And as somebody who is consistent, you're able to build trust that compounds over time. So it's kind of like if you think about investing in the stock market. The stock market does this. It's all over the place, right? Like if you check your retirement portfolio on any given month, you could be like, "Oh my gosh, I just lost $20,000 this week." And then the next week it could be you gained 50. It's all over the place, right? But you as the consistent CEO, you know you're playing the long game. And so if you look at a normal retirement portfolio, even with all those up and downs, it's up and down on the way up is what they call it. So your trust in the market is really like pretty consistently increasing over time. It's not on that big roller coaster that other people might be on because they show up really hard for a few weeks and then disappear. So that's really awesome. And that is helpful, especially in a market that is less trusting than they were a few years ago. They want to see that somebody's legit and that they're showing up and they're consistent and they're not like posting a few blog posts and then disappearing for a year. So relying on the compounding trust for you is going to be super helpful for you making more money. You're able to create more client loyalty that generates that consistent recurring revenue, so that lifetime customer value. Yes, it might take you longer to get a new client than someone who moves a little faster, but once you have that client in your world, they stick around for a lot longer usually. So again, you're stacking those revenue opportunities over time, more and more clients, and then the ones that start with you, they stay with you. So you're really building your client base over time. You're also amazing at delivering reliably. So clients know exactly what they're getting from you. You're very clear about that. You are really focused on creating a great experience for people and showing up the way that they're expecting. You don't promise them all this stuff and then ghost them, which is, I know sounds, especially as a consistent CEO, that's going to be like, why would anyone do that? But honestly, that's a really common experience that people are having now with online coaches where somebody says they're going to do something and then they literally don't do it. And so that experience really makes people gun shy about investing more in an online coach or expert. But when they know that you're somebody who delivers reliably on the things that you've promised, that is something that gets you better testimonials. Even if the testimonial is more about you as a person, even than the results, I'm sure people are getting great results, but a lot of times the thing that really stands out to them is just the way you showed up in integrity for the service that you were providing. And that means a lot to people in a world where people are really comfortable breaking promises and they are looking at how do I make money, not how do I create the best experience for my clients. So, what that also gives you, which is super valuable to help you make more money, is word of mouth. So, your long term relationships are going to tell everybody that they know that, you can trust this person, you should work with them. I've been working with them for years. It's kind of like I was mentioning my trainer. I have 10 years of experience working with him. If somebody asked for a recommendation for a trainer, I'd be absolutely happy to recommend him. And so you have that kind of reputation with your current clients that they are very, very happy to send their friends and family to you. So that's another way that you can grow your business. Yes, it's not as flashy as the people doing these big launches and big marketing promotions, but word of mouth sales are some of the easiest sales you can make. They hardly even need to be sold to because they're just coming because so and so told them to. They trust you already. And you're naturally good at building that because your clients love you so much. You're also great at avoiding the churn of constantly finding new clients. So I mentioned before, you're not having that ups and downs because when you add somebody new, they stay with you for a longer time. So you're really stacking that revenue as opposed to having that feast or famine experience where you have to find a new client every month because you're like, people aren't staying around, people aren't renewing. So churn is something that can be really harmful to a business, especially if you have like a membership model or something where people staying for a long time is benefiting your business. If people are leaving rapidly, that's not good for your business and it starts to become a non-viable business. So you as the consistent CEO, you have the benefit of when people come in, they stay for a long time and you don't have to constantly be replacing people who are leaving. And the thing that I want you to be thinking about as you continue to learn more about your CEO type and you think about how does your personality really work in a world that seems to reward flashiness and fast movers, premium clients, people who want to spend a lot of money or are ready to spend a lot of money on what they want to solve in their life and their business and their health and their relationships. Truly, most people want somebody who's dependable. Yes, sometimes the flashy people get more attention, and I get it. It can feel frustrating when you're like, what about me? I'm here doing a great job, and you're giving your money to somebody who's just got a prettier website than me. But ultimately, most people are much more interested in working with someone they can depend on than someone who's got the most beautiful marketing. Now, we can talk a little bit about how some of your blind spots might be causing it to be harder for you to connect with those premium clients. But at the end of the day, that reliability, that dependability, the loyalty, the integrity, that is something that's very attractive to people who want to invest in their health, in their relationships, in their wealth, and all the things that matter to them. And we just need to make sure that you're expressing yourself effectively to be able to get in front of those clients in the first place. So let's get into the blind spots because steadiness is both a gift and a challenge, right? Like, and this is going to be true for all of the different personalities that we're talking about. I don't want you to think that, the ones that are fast movers or big action takers don't have their own challenges. Everybody's got challenges to work through. So these are just the ones that tend to be more common for the consistent CEO because, yes, steadiness is great for long-term growth and compounding results. But we're also in a market that changes pretty fast, and sometimes staying consistent means that you can end up falling behind. It also means that your commitment to serving people can turn into excessive accommodation, and that can impact what you're choosing to do because you're more focused on making your clients and your customers and your audience happy than you are being decisive and being a leader around what's the best way for you to run your business. So you have the tendency to fall into what I call the accommodate first drift pattern with not only the way that you're marketing, but also the way that you're delivering your services. Let's start with delivery. So first of all, when you're delivering your services, you say yes to things that in hindsight you regret, or you are starting to get into that scope creep experience because people are asking things from you. And for you, maybe it's easier to just say yes because you're willing to do it than to set a boundary or have a hard conversation where you have to say no to someone. Now, this can obviously feel like you're serving people well, but if it happens excessively, you end up totally losing any sort of control over what you're willing to do, what you've committed to doing, what you've even charged for. And then you end up way over delivering and way undercharging and not being able to make the money you need to make for your business to be as successful as it could be. Now, you might also tend towards just generally underpricing your services. You want to be accessible and affordable, and you want people to be able to say yes to you. And I understand the desire for that. But in reality, there's never a price that is going to accommodate everyone. And so if you're trying to be available to as many people as possible, you're going to end up massively underpricing for what you could be pricing your services at. And the idea of raising your prices might feel risky. It might feel like too much of a change. And that can keep you stuck at underpricing or undercharging for a long time. And that is very dangerous for your business. I know for a lot of the consistent CEOs I've worked with, it really takes a lot of motivation for them to increase their prices. Now, once they finally do, they're very happy that they did, but that can be a big challenge for them. This also shows up in your messaging and your marketing. So a lot of times because you're the kind of person who likes to keep the peace or to maintain relationships or to really try to be that person that is considering everybody as much as possible, that can bleed into your messaging because your messaging ends up staying safe, it stays vague, it stays vanilla, because you're worried that taking too strong of a stance might alienate somebody or might upset somebody or might make somebody feel like you're not for them. And so because you try to stay broad, you try to stay more accessible, your messaging starts to fall flat and it doesn't get the attention it could. And a lot of times it just gets ignored. And so you're putting out content that in your mind, you're like, this is really good content. But the way that you're presenting it is not catching people's attention because it's too safe. And then it just goes unnoticed. So that can be super frustrating. Another challenge can be because you're so consistent and so committed, you can make decisions in your business that, years in are starting to become clearly not a fit, clearly not aligned, clearly not the best direction for you to go in. But because you're the kind of person that doesn't quit stuff, you stick with what's comfortable or what's known long past when it actually serves you in your business. So you may have that inkling that something in your business is not working, whether it's the way you're serving your clients, your prices, your messaging, your calendar, so many different things that could maybe be like, I don't know if this is really the best fit for me anymore. That hesitation to make any big changes can actually keep you stuck in something that's not working for you because the unknown feels more risky than just sticking with the mediocre known. You might also have the tendency to avoid hard conversations. So, again, this can be with clients, this can be even with yourself. Like sometimes you have to kind of have your own tough love for yourself to make changes. And because you're so committed to relationships, sometimes you can end up putting the relationship above the growth opportunity or the boundary that you need to set for yourself. And then that can cause you to hang on to clients that you shouldn't be working with, saying yes to people about things you should have said no to. If you want to raise your rates, you're like overthinking it for months because you don't know how you're supposed to tell people, even though you could literally just do it and most people wouldn't care. So you just have this it excessively slow moving change process sometimes that makes it so that you don't change things fast enough to really keep pace with the way that your life is changing, the way that the market is changing. And then that can create misalignment that sticks around because it's kind of like the boiling frog situation where, it's getting worse, it's getting worse. You're kind of like, oh, I don't really like this until all of a sudden, you're in a serious problem. And what can get really frustrating, especially if you've been in business for longer, is you watch others who maybe came in online the same time as you, or, you guys are kind of in the same journey in your business. You watch their businesses just totally take off, and yours has been in the same place for years. Same revenue, maybe even the revenue's dipping, right? Like it's not growing. You're not having this like hockey stick growth experience, and you're seeing other people supposedly have this experience. And it's like, man, what am I doing wrong that is causing me to just have the same revenue year after year, even though I really am trying to grow things? Now, this can happen to the consistent CEO because generally big changes feel very unstabilizing to your nervous system, and sometimes they can even feel dangerous. Now, obviously, there can be situations where there's actual trauma patterns that are causing that, but your general personality does not like things to change dramatically all at once. And you're also not big into the idea of making a decision without knowing what might happen, which unfortunately with entrepreneurship, that's like the name of the game, is making choices when you don't know what the result is going to be. When you feel like things are creating friction in relationships, or you're getting a lot of, complaints or negative comments online, or you put out an email and you get a bunch of unsubscribes, like that kind of experience for someone who's a consistent CEO can feel very scary because you start to question like, well, what did I do wrong? What did I say? Why did all these people unsubscribe? Even though you literally never know. Like so many things can happen. It could be that there was, like, I remember this happened to me back in, what year was that? 2021 was when January 6th happened. I had an email that was scheduled to go out on that day, and I totally didn't even like think to do anything about it, especially because I think it was a Tuesday, right? I don't remember, but I just remember it wasn't even until the end of the day that I even had a chance to find out something had happened. And I remember this, she was a dietitian. I'm pretty sure she was talking about me because I saw that she had unsubscribed from my list that day. And she put out this statement on social media to be like, oh, like, tell me how tone deaf you are that you're sending an email out on a day like today, January 6th. And I was like, what? Like, I literally, that was scheduled like a week ago. And I didn't even hear about this news until an hour ago. So you really think I like went and wrote that email this morning and decided to send it even with crazy stuff happening in the world? Like, that's the kind of thing where when you are a consistent CEO, you do things in advance. You do things that are like, this is just my routine. This is my, this is my schedule, and stuff like that can happen. And because you care about how people experience you, it can be very destabilizing. That doesn't mean it has to be. And, that's one of the things I help my clients with is really the ability to be in their own integrity, to not necessarily get riled up about what other people are doing or saying. But because you care about people, you almost can start to get into this like hyper vigilant state in the current state of the world because you don't want to do something that is perceived as insensitive or, rude or whatever, right? So that can make it hard for you to actually even take advantage of your consistency because it's like you feel like you have to just be like ready for the other shoe to drop. And you don't necessarily want to be using that consistency to just like say, okay, I'm just showing up with my stuff the way I'm, always doing. And I'm not letting what's happening in the world derail me from what I'm supposed to be focusing on this week. So the steadiness can be the safety mechanism that in a very volatile world that we're in right now, it can actually drive you into hiding. It can drive you into paralysis. That steadiness that tends to be the thing that helps you grow your business can then turn into being frozen. And so that's a little bit more of an extreme example, but I feel like that's something that in the last few years has become really a big problem for consistent CEOs because the world, I don't know when it may never get more chill, right? Like I feel like I remember before 2020, yes, there was controversy. Yes, there was arguments happening online, but it was not anything like it's been in the last 5 or 6 years. And so instead of waiting for things to slow down or get more stable, we have to understand how to continue to show up in our strengths, even while the world is crazy around us. So I did want to mention that because I do think for you guys, the consistent CEOs, being able to stay consistent even when the world is crazy is a really important part of your approach to business, but you may have the tendency to shrink back and pull your stuff out of the public eye because you're concerned, well, what if somebody misinterprets my consistency as being, like I don't care about what's going on in the world. So there's just a lot of stuff where you can be a little bit more sensitive to the things going on right now. You can feel more nervous about saying the wrong things, about doing the wrong things, and that can turn into this paralysis experience that is really not good for your business. So really the difference between being strategic with your consistency and then using fear as a driver of complacency essentially is that strategic consistency builds something that grows over time and is sustainable and compounds on itself. So you'll see that growth over time as you continue to show up and do the things that are growing your business versus if it's coming from a place of fear and really that consistency turns into stagnation. You're not taking action. You're not making changes. You're not showing up boldly with an opinion. That keeps your business stuck. And in a lot of cases, it actually will cause your business to shrink and decline. So let's talk about what to do. I don't want anyone to feel like, oh no, this is like not sounding too good. There is a way to use your consistency as a huge strength. And that's what I really want to leave you with today. So the key insight here is that you do not have to have a new personality. You do not have to burn your whole business down. If things are shrinking, if things are stagnant, you do not have to just destroy everything because that's sometimes how change feels to a consistent CEO is like any big change can feel like you're just destroying the thing that you created, even if technically it's moving in a positive direction for your business. So I don't want you to feel like you are just trashing everything you built. We want to look strategically at what parts of your business are working so you can double down on those and stay consistent, and which parts of your business are not working. And sometimes it's that they worked 2 years ago and they don't work now. Honestly, the market changes fast enough where it could be that something was working 6 months ago and it's not working now. So we need to be able to move with the things that are moving and stay consistent with the things that are not moving. And you don't have to be changing your business every 6 months, right? So you just are looking at how do I stay consistent with the stuff that matters? And how do I stay flexible with the things that need a little bit more adaptation speed? And it's not every single thing in your business. So instead of being consistent about being comfortable in your business, you become consistent about growing. So you're consistently doing the things that lead to growth and increase performance in your business, increase sales, increase clients, increase impact, whatever success looks like to you, this is growing over time because you are keeping up with the things that need to change when they're ready to change. So let's talk about what this looks like in your business. First of all, in your offers, making sure that you are setting boundaries and defining the scope of what you are offering without letting yourself get outside of that scope a ton just because you want to make people happy. You can be very consistent with your offers. Sometimes what can happen is that means you're not being as creative or as flexible to make your offer better for more people. But sometimes that also means that you are overly concerned about people's experience or their happiness, and that can mean that you go outside of what you promised in a way that does not feel good to you. So it's holding the boundaries around the things that matter, and then also having some flexibility around improving things or adapting things or enhancing things that can benefit more people. With your messaging, being willing to take clear and strong positions. It doesn't mean you have to be posting rage bait. It doesn't mean you have to be making people intentionally angry or getting into arguments. But if you're trying to soften your language so that it doesn't make anyone feel left out, or, you're seeing some nuance, you don't want to necessarily have a decision, you just want to kind of talk about the nuance that you're seeing, that does not always work as well for getting paid clients. So really looking, how can you be more clear in what you think about things, how you can express your opinions, because honestly, people want to know what you think. People in 2026 and beyond will trust you more when you are clear about your thoughts about the things that matter to you. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be commenting on every single thing that's happening in the world, but if something's important to you, if something matters to you as well as your ideal clients, then really taking a stand for that, because the people who are really best qualified to work with you are going to appreciate that and feel more gravitated towards that than if you're just trying to be like vague so that you don't offend anybody. With your sales process, you may have the challenge of being a little too loosey-goosey with inviting people to take an action step. I know that a lot of the consistent CEOs I work with give their leads a very wide berth on making a decision in the sales process. And unfortunately, that can lead to people ghosting. It can lead to people not feeling like there's any decision timeline. There's no need to make the decision right now. And we're all busy. We're all distracted. If you let people just go off and think about stuff and you don't give them an actual decision-making structure, unless they're super self-motivated, they will probably disappear. And so we don't want to just let our ideal clients just drift off into the same old same that they've been experiencing, especially if you tend to attract other people with your personality type. You already know they might struggle to make changes. And so one of the things that you want to set up in the sales process is being the leader to help them make a change, even when it feels scary. I know that that can be tough when you're a consistent CEO and change is scary or hard for you, but we can start to put just basic structure into your sales process that creates a little bit of decision pressure so that the person isn't just drifting off and then never, actually making a decision. And then with your pricing, making sure that the price reflects the value of what you do and the transformation that you facilitate, and holding to that price without apologizing. I know a lot of my consistent CEO clients feel like they have to have some sort of external validation for their price. So what are other people charging? What is my hourly rate worth? What am I like? Should I increase it by 5% every year, right? Like, they want to make a very logical pricing decision. And that can mean that you're stuck at the same price for a really long time when you actually didn't need to. So if you can be bold and be clear about what your container is designed to help people with, that can give you the confidence to say, no, you know what, this is worth a lot more and I am going to raise the price. And a lot of times after you raise the price, you realize, oh, I should have done this a long time ago, right? It's very rare that I have a consistent CEO raise their price and regret it, because they already probably were at least a few months, if not years, past the point where they should have raised it in the first place. So what this allows you to experience is that you don't feel stuck in the same business all the time where you're just kind of circling the drain or seeing decline because again, the market is not stable. So if you're not growing, a lot of times it means you're shrinking, right? Your clients that you're attracting respect your boundaries, they take action faster, they feel like they're being led by you than just held by you. And being led is really important when you sell a transformational offer. And this is what allows you to have that sustainable growth that's stacking and compounding over time while also not burning out by trying to operate outside of your giftings, your personality type, or doing things that feel out of an integrity or alignment with who you are. So as far as your game plan is concerned, there's a few things that I would recommend doing. First of all, building accountability into your offers as far as making it so that they're making decisions, they're taking action, they're not just sticking in the same, I'm just here to make very incremental changes and then they're not getting any results. Really making sure that your container is built in a way that actually leads somebody through a process and helps hold them accountable to the transformation that they wanted. Because like I said, a lot of times consistent CEOs will also naturally attract people who also have that personality. And if there's two people trying to work together and both of them are very change avoidant, it can mean that the person who you're working with is not getting the results that they're capable of because you're not leading the way as far as the action taking is concerned. In your messaging, it means taking a position, being bold, being a little controversial even if it feels risky, because ultimately you are competing in a content space that extreme opinions are what's getting attention. And listen, I am not saying you have to have an extreme opinion, but if people can't really tell what your opinion is at all, that is a problem. So we really want to make sure you are sharing your opinion and being clear and being, principled about the things that matter to you, because the people who align with that will be much more attracted to work with you when you're expressing that clearly. In your sales process, you want to be leading people to make a decision, giving them clear and kind structure, not just saying, all right, let me know what you think, and then letting them disappear. And then they take another 6 months to change their life because you didn't hold them accountable to the decision. It doesn't mean that you have to be giving like hardcore FOMO deadlines or anything. It just means there's some guidelines around when the decision is expected and what the process is. In your pricing, raising to reflect the value of your service, not waffling, not feeling guilty, not feeling like you're afraid to increase your price or that you have to have like 1,000 different points of reference to justify it. Looking at the value of what you do and saying, this is really valuable and it's worth a lot more than what I've been charging. And then in the vision for your business, looking at what do you actually want from your business? A lot of the consistent CEOs I work with are so focused on just being a good service provider, being a good coach, being a good practitioner, that they don't even stop to think about what they actually want in their business. And then they're like wondering why they're not growing, right? It's like you haven't even thought about where you want to go and then you're wondering why you're not there. We need to really be clear about what do you want your business to look like? What do you want the results to look like? And then making strategic decisions to build for that growth rather than just staying comfortable in the safety that you already have and just kind of like, doing the thing every single day and not looking at where am I actually going. So if you want a great example of a very successful, consistent CEO, I would invite you to listen to the interview I did with my client, Steph Godreau. She's been in business for over 12 years now. So clearly very consistent, very committed. She's an ex-teacher, so she's definitely someone who cares a lot about people and is just willing to keep putting the reps in. And so she is just like your stereotypical consistent CEO, really good at showing up and continuing to do the thing. Like I can't remember, her podcast has been running for years. Like she just will not quit something, right? So her story is really about what happened when the things that she was doing were no longer aligned. And it really got to a point where she knew, oh my gosh, I have to do something different. I cannot keep doing it this way, because she had an experience where she wrote a book. The book didn't sell as well as she hoped. The launch that she did not do as well. Like, it's not like it tanked. It's just that she has these goals, she has these desires to perform well. And the things that she did, because they were not 100% aligned with where she wanted to go in her business, they didn't perform as well as she was hoping. So she had this really frustrating and stressful period of time where she was questioning, am I even cut out for this? What am I doing? Like, she just got into this, like, very lost period of time. And what she did to find her way back really came back to leaning into her nature as a consistent CEO versus fighting it. So really getting clear about, what do I actually want? Who do I want to talk to? What do I love talking about? Like, just using her consistency as a gift and not something that's just consistently pulling her in the wrong direction, and allowing her to pause, reassess where she was going, realign so that she was doing the thing that she loved, and then applying her consistency to that. And now, 4 years later, she's got the same core offers. She's got clients that have been staying with her for years, and her business is growing again. And again, she's been in business for over a decade, probably about the same length of time as me. And she's using her consistency to grow successfully and not to just stay stagnant or to head her towards, an eventual end of her business, because that could have happened if she hadn't pumped the brakes and said, okay, I really need an alignment adjustment here. And she looked at, what do I actually want? And that was such an important question for her. So that is Steph Gaudreau. I'll link to her interview in the show notes, so that way you can check it out. You can listen to her story, because I think you'll be really inspired by somebody who isn't distracted by all the flashiness. She's, not selling something that she feels out of integrity to sell. She feels great about what she's offering, and she's still able to grow even in a market that rewards a lot of that volatility. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I really want this to be something that inspires you as the consistent CEO to not only value the things that make you you, but also to make sure that that consistency is heading you in the right direction. That's actually creating the life that you want. Because when you're pointed in the right direction, your steadiness and your consistency is an asset, not a limitation. So the work that you are really needing to do is making sure that you're channeling that steadiness towards growth instead of just safety. And when you can do that, then your growth will compound over time, and you will have a business that can last decades. So if this was resonant for you and you want to go deeper, go check out the Consistent CEO results page for your full game plan. That should be in your email if you took the test. If you didn't take the test yet, the quiz, go take the What CEO Type Are You quiz. I'll link to that in the show notes. And then you can find out, are you even a consistent CEO, or maybe you're a different type? And look through that game plan to really understand where you might be holding yourself back, where your growth opportunities are, and where your strengths are that can really help you grow a very successful business in a way that's aligned with who you are, so you don't have to be someone different. And if you have friends, colleagues, anyone who you think could benefit from either this episode, or you think they should learn what kind of CEO they are so that they can align their business for their strengths, I invite you to share that quiz with a friend. My goal with this is to really help as many entrepreneurs as possible to understand themselves better and to understand how their business can be uniquely designed for them so that it grows and doesn't require them to be, again, turning into somebody else that they're not. So share with a friend. I hope that this was helpful for you. I really look forward to continuing to reinforce the value of consistency and the value of trustworthiness and integrity in the market that we're in. And you are everybody's archetype for that. So thank you for leading the way and being the person who we can look at and say, there's somebody who shows up. They are somebody who is trustworthy. There's somebody who grows over time. What can I do to be more like them? So thank you for being you. I hope that this was valuable, and I'll look forward to seeing you here next time on the Nourish CEO podcast. Take care, everybody.